There's tracks too. I drove past Danny's into the clay tracking from one hay shed to the next one. I looked down and went, holy crap, we want to go drive along that there. Yeah, it was looking like she was going to swallow you.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time for them to come. Good day. You need a little bit of sand to spread it.
Right. Right, we're on board. All right. Budget. Here we are. Topic number 1. We are looking at roads and capital works today. Ben with us to lead us off. So this is a little bit before all the information, Ben. Yes, but Ben still knows things, and so do I. So we've done a fair bit of work here, which we are pretty confident will be reflected when the information comes through. The information is dripping through now. What have we received? Seal?
Yesterday, so gone through some of that. There's extra tweaks and stuff. Yeah, some roads we got the bare basic elements.
Yeah,
but just what the represents. So hopefully that'll sort of roll in the next little bit, but we'll through the presentation be able to show you where we currently sit with our sealed road stuff in product press, and give some confidence in regards to how we're assessing it, etc.
So the big part of what we've done here is we'll start with the roads policy, so to speak. Right now, this roads policy is what Ben has been for the whole. He's been working to for the whole year. Is that it? The year. 13 weeks. But there's a massive thing that we have adjusted in there, which is the useful life. Because 35 years, I think we can all agree that 150 mil with the maintenance and the grading and what have you, 150 mil isn't going to last 35 years with 50 mil for us to then go and reach it. So we've pulled useful life back, and this has had quite an impact on how much we should be renewing yearly. And what that's going to cost.
Do you go to 10 or 15?
As well. We went to 20 for now.
Yeah.
For now. We'll wait and see what all useful life and what it comes back from NTRO to really clarify it. But we'll start at the 20 for the big ones, which is 80%. 80%. It's 90% of our road network. Yeah. Is our 4A4B. So
They killed the budget.
What's that?
It's killed the budget.
Well, it made things expensive, sure. Yeah. But so a big part of today is just clarifying, because we're going to put this into the actual policy now, not just be at the whim. It'll go into the policy when the policy is up for review in the next couple of months. It'll be, we just need to clarify the actual data. So a big part of today is about what that bucket of money means and how big that is. We're not going to be talking about balancing any budgets or anything today. We're really talking about here's the bucket of money, here's what this means. The bucket of money and let's discuss what do we do comes in an hour or so. Once we get all the information, once we throw operation spending at you as well, once we throw correct depreciation figures at you, correct condition ratings, all that. So all of that sort of stuff's coming. This today is, here's our roads, here's what we want to do, here's how we will look after them, here's what we'll put in as when the useful life is, how long the useful life is, what the end of the useful life actually means, and the $2 million it's going to cost. All right. Questions already?
No, I just got thinking service level as well. I imagine.
Yes.
So you have a useful life. Yeah. A service level, which is what
another big thing
Ben's going to get down to.
So Ben's got his list of roads as well. And again, this is all just sort of the start. Ben's got his list, but we'll also from NTRO. They'll be giving us a full 10-year capital as well. So we
Suggested.
suggested, that's right. And
Still.
Way you go, Deputy Dog.
Deputy Dale.
Thanks for that. So, Jennifer Taylor talked about, Unsealed Road, we'll talk about first, in regards to road policy, they've adopted in 2024, as council. That doesn't actually, identify useful lives and design for roads. But we've been working on 150 mil by 7.2 metres wide for all of our road categories. And then we work through, that on a annual basis. So we have a discussion about useful lives. Useful lives are, we put in the background to say the road 50 mil will last 35 years. That doesn't mean it's intervention level. So I'll clarify that. So what does, if you amend, we'll call it amend useful life. What's the intervention if brought back to 10 years, what brought back to 20 years? What would that impact on the budget? Potentially that would give us a better surface, drivable surface. Which is where we get our components from and where we need to get our strength for the freight movements, etc. So we'll talk about some adjustments for that. We've got some, I guess, proposal in regards to the renewal plan. What does that look like for the budget for this year coming up? We'll talk about sealed roads. Give an update the data that's coming through from Nitro. There's some screens on that. We're also looking at again based on a useful lives or intervention. Also, I thought we'll take the opportunity to plant equipment. We'll see if we can work through something as well. Again, asset plan for plant equipment. Next one, please.
Useful lives are paid for administrations to easily manipulate functions. So if I take conversations where findings of things have no councils will actually put it out to 50 years. Yeah. We're going the opposite way. We're bringing it in. Accounting standards say we can use 35, but we're not doing an accounting standard.
And again, when we do a condition rating, we work on the useful life is 35 years, for example. We then go and assess it, and it will tell us how long we've gone through that useful life, how much we've consumed, and it will generally come back as being, and then that will determine how much depreciation we have. To recap, unsealed roads, we have 1,100 kilometres of roads through our district. 222 of them are formed roads, which are clay or which we don't have any financial value at this point in time. Won't talk about resealing or road resheeting. It is purely the stuff that has rubble. Anything else is under our maintenance budget. So accordingly, our maintenance budget allocation or renewal budget allocation should be across where we do have rubble. In terms of a freight network, so it's either a gazetted freight route, which means any truck can drive on it if they're gazetted, or it's a permit route. We're talking 85 to 90% of our routes. 85% of the routes are freight routes. So it means our trucks are going through those. 15% of those are local sheeted roads, which are general smaller roads and very small volume access scenarios. Next screen, please. We did talk about this this time last year in terms of when intervening or doing some proactive or preventive maintenance. Obviously doing preventive maintenance will push out extended useful life. So it's always good to do that. Instead of allowing the asset to completely wear right down, then you have to rebuild from scratch. So what we're talking about is where's the best line of sand to then replenish what we've used. So do get that right ability. So looking at that, the screen in front of me, we've got the budget allocations, which is the same as the previous screen. At the moment, in our asset management plan, it is a flat on 35 years across all of our classes of. So whether it's a freight route that has numerous vehicles on it, whether it's a local traffic, we're all saying 35 years for ease of calculation. What we're suggesting is other councils have used an intervention level or a adjusted useful life. We're saying that our freight routes will last suggested 20 years before we intervene. So local tracks or local roads, we're suggesting let's push those to 28 to 30. And what does that look like for a budget? So the adjusted annual renewal will be, currently we were working on 24 kilometres for 150 mil resheet 2 years ago. This year we put a program of 35 kilometres in with a 60 to 75% top up. Now we're looking at if we adjust it for useful lives and a skinnier resheet, we can aim for 42 kilometres. So again, that's trying to make sure that we get better roads across our network, topping them up across our network instead of just doing 1 or 2 roads with a full depth of 150 mil that pleases 1 or 2 businesses or communities. We're trying to get more bang for buck across our regional network. So I was listening to our ratepayers to say our roads are pretty ordinary, we don't have the right ability we used to have. How can we then spread that across? What does that mean? It means our desired pavement 150 mil for freight routes. If we were to do 100 mil resheet, we've trialled that this year, and there's been a few spots where we need to top it up, but generally we can use that 100 mil. And again, we're just replenishing it, assuming that there's 50 mil of it we can salvage. So using the scarifying blades, getting some shape back to it, we're topping it with 100 mil. We believe that will last for another 20 years and give us a right ability. In terms of our permit B-double routes, so again, they might be always going down those roads, might be infrequent. So we need that 125 mil depth. Again, our general road criteria is 150 mil. We're saying we should be able to get away with 125 if we keep that repetitive maintenance up. So it's not just a set and forget. It's saying that if we top it up, then we might have to top it up 20 years, but we'll be able to then run a skinnier pavement. So we're suggesting there we will have 40 mil or 50% residual road we can build on top of. For our local routes, again, we're talking 15% of our routes, not a huge amount, just 100 mil pavement, and then a top up of 75 mil. So we're assuming that there's 25 mil material there, and most of those roads would probably have that. And again, wear and tear on those local roads won't be as severe, and you'll have more time to work through solutions for that. If a gazetted B-double route that's having a lot of vehicles on it, if we have trouble with it, it will show signs of strength. So, any questions on that?
Yeah, there is a fair bit of consistency in your 50 or 25 mils, isn't there? Like a lot of roads, because they were sectionally built, drove a real good bit.
Yep.
That bit's got a bit of rubble there and then a lot of clay through it.
Correct. So I guess the intent with this is to say, if we can do more kilometres and the drivability is very similar, even though there might be poorer base in some sections, then we might be able to get to more roads and finish roads from go to. So between side road to side road, do the whole segments, instead of at the moment we're cutting road to road in smaller segments, and we're trying to get around to a number of different segments. So again, it's trying to build the efficiencies into how we deliver, trying to have more roads across our district we're sorting out, but also saying that if we can scarify, the scarifying works, we've shown that, we've done 100 kilometres, remember, this last 12 months, we can scarify, top over with 100 mil, 75 mil. We believe we can get that pavement back to its design 100, 150 mil. So by doing that process, because in the past it was you leave whatever's there, you go straight over the top and walk down in clay area, so you have 150 mil there, but in the crown, on the side of the crown, you might have 75, you have 220 mil. So it's trying to then scarify, get some shape back to it, then cut, and we believe that will last for 20 to 30 years.
So you're saying that scarification actually means that you even out the road surface as well?
Yeah.
So you're actually bringing it to where there is the hollow that's been pushed out, you're actually bringing material into that, so it's got a uniform.
Correct.
Not exactly, but
It does a good job.
Yeah, so as an example, we would say Sheila Road and the east-west bypass, as you call it, the local road that goes through, we have scarified that in the last 12 months. So we know that where there is some poorer pavements there, some thinner pavements, we know that will show through, but by scarifying it, letting it sit and then rubber cutting, we believe we can then extend that, the life of that.
And what about the width? Certainly for the major anyone's that carry B-doubles and farming equipment been trying to pass on the size width-wise is pretty tricky. I mean, if you come against a self-propelled sprayer coming the other way, or even a B-double, which is a big thing, particularly now when side, that really is to find a edge. It's actually, you can't get much to go on. It's okay if there's vapor, but if the scrubble on the stops, you can get to a point where you actually can't pass. If you're in a truck and there's a sprayer coming the other way, you want getting through.
Yeah, I've had to stop and just stop somewhere so someone can't come back.
If there's a place to go.
It's great. So,
Yeah.
but it's better to have decent roads.
I'm just wearing the 7.2 metre
Yeah, it does seem to be pretty. Yeah.
or a 4, but it's fine for 5.
Yeah.
All these 4 up, it still seems real life when sort of it's probably more. It's 8.5, is it around about?
I guess some of the roads are a little bit wide.
Yeah.
We will basically try and push up whatever material is there. I guess that's the other thing with this as well is by doing less work, you're doing more work. What we find is if we do 150 mil, we reshape it. We do have swale drains on the side that are a little bit deeper than what people normally get used to. We also have to spend money fixing driveways up because we're lifting them. If we're only putting a skinning layer more frequently, it means that we're only lifting road 75 mil. That means that the drop off to the edges are probably less severe. And also means we can pull more material out as well. The stuff on the side of the road that we leave for the time being until we resheet the road, we pull that up to crack shoulders. So there's examples there where the rubble we know is 7.2 metres wide. If we lose a bit on the outsides, then the rest of it is contaminated with what we win from the sides. Where we can go, we try and bring the shoulders in and sort of push them up. Where we're vegetation, that's where it needs to. So, and I guess working through on averages, we're going from somewhere that was these are the 2 rules that comply to let's have a look at individual roads, make them. There might be opportunities where we cut off in or driveways, there is paddock access, widen those out so you can get around. Yeah, I think some of the problems may be around the local routes, not the B double routes, the gazetted routes, but they're normally fairly wide. That's the ones we need to look at. Yeah, definitely we'll look at that. So, and again, we're hoping that having Nitro on board, having an asset management system, we can then have a very mature asset management system and say each of these roads we are going to put them 7 metres wide, and therefore that spits out all of our road segments and what we're going to do. At the moment, we're using 2 or 3 means to calculate and trying to get across the district. So we're trying to average instead of saying no, specifically that road is 8 metres wide. This one here we go back to 4 because it's only certain access to certain bits. Or we might have one that's got 4 metres of road access and white chocks. So you can get the farm equipment through, but chock blocks can get through and is so yes, there's that bit of
Yeah, and that's the end state, and you'll see with the MTRO stuff that comes through how far you can zoom in. At Ben's right. If we can have asset management set up to the road, that's awesome. Instead of just lining it in like and then we can keep talking and make sure.
I think what we're doing is exactly what we've been trying to do sometimes. It's more about just making sure that, again, it's not whether we do the work, because that's fun. But you drive down DXB and the trees are really pushing in. I mean, you can't, you cannot pass trees in front. Now that's, I guess, important, but maybe you really sort of material because it runs all the way through the battle this way. And so that is a significant road and it's private production on the whole way. And you literally can pass. And that's a long way of time. But if you're in a beat up. So it's just making sure that we, again, I can plan to get to that. Because it's obviously also about having treatment for them. So we used to have machine cut soft. So I don't think there's anything to deal with that. But in this, it's going to have to be so we're doing that section of road. How to trim that birch back so it's not actually killing you. We still push out the one, it's just sticking the road, ripping the road as best as possible.
And just for you, and the reason for going to more roads more frequently is just that, is that you can then capitalise, using accounting terms, you can capitalise that expense vegetation back to get the side drains done to then re-roll the road. You're not waiting for 35 years theoretically to 150 million, which we can see the vegetation grows back, and if you can trim it through some discrete grader blading for the drainage, discrete refeed, you can then manage that vegetation which is an issue. Yeah. So
Could be an attachment for the skid steer that does concrete curving.
Scroll.
Why couldn't we coordinate some of landscape SA against that?
well, that's the direction of council. I think. Consider that, I guess. Yeah. I guess the vegetation that's on the roads does have benefit. It does in some areas. Yeah, it does wind up those road corners. We have seen other areas of the council as well, the chamber, where if you don't have vegetation on the side of the road, if it is burned, for example, if it is not maintained, you do get sand drift. And at the moment, we don't want sand drift on the paddock. So again, as a consideration, how do we deal with that? Yes, we did have a vehicle previously. Potentially in the future, we can come to council and say we've got a tractor that we don't use high utilisation. Can we retrofit that or buy a new one that has multiple purpose? Or we get rid of that contract there. And again, we've been a little bit lax in terms of maintaining a road source by giving contractors lots of money to do that. We'd rather spend money on road service. But again, as we mature our asset management plans, we'll definitely look at that. So it is a maintenance expense generally, but if you can put it in as part of works, can score it.
It's got to get. That just asked on that. So the information NCR gathered with their sort of stuff, is that what that was? Or you were saying back that they will have collected that data on tree verge ingresses, but that won't be reportable at the current model that may come in the future. Is that the sort of things that the ingress and curving?
The reason for going for micro instead of some of the others is a computerized system. The vehicle drives down the road, it captures video, captures photos, and it takes the light perception, gets the latest information. So it provides that information. We can then, behind the scenes, go through and assess for that. So we've looked at it and said they've picked up curves or they've picked up visual. When you look at Google Maps, not all Google Maps Street View is available for our local roads. This gives us that opportunity. It also says that if council in the chamber comes to us next year and says, give us an update on all that science, we can go to them and say, download all that data, analyse it all, and give us a condition rating of our storage. Give us a condition rating of our breach and vegetation, or a guidance.
So that is mature enough now, because there was something that they were capturing the information but couldn't analyse it or produce it into a report yet, but that would come and it'll be up to data.
Correct. So the line, we got the second vehicle, not the manual issues with it. So some of that LiDAR stuff we didn't have. And they have committed to come back to do some of the smaller routes available. But generally the images are every 10, 20 weeks.
Good.
So it means we can go back and say, when did we replace that sign? It wasn't this time or that time. So we can, and again, that's why we negotiated with the contract with them to say, they've got the data, we can then give us this information. What's that going to cost us to get that? Because the vehicle has gone around. Also, by collecting it at the same method, in 5 years' time, similar to what I've done with Stormont, we've got CCTV cameras for both years. So it means we can then go back and say, has this road deteriorated over 5 years? We can say, well, no, it has. That local road or cul-de-sac or a dead-end road is still the same condition what it is 5 years ago, therefore we can give it another 5 years. Or Target well, we've looked at that and that's deteriorating 5 years from there to there. Okay, for the next 1 year, what is it? So it takes it away from, I guess, the guesswork and the person, and puts it back into process, and therefore we can call on that when they're led to body or when asset managers want to deal with it. So, yep.
Yeah. So,
okay, next one. So what does that mean for us? If we look at a 20-year useful life, in regards to our road classifications, the volume.
go for it. It looks arbitrary, but I've just picked 20 years for the sake of it. This was going through a few of them this properly, and they might give three different lengths. Three different useful lives, and we've we've sort of averaged them out now at 20-ish, so we put it to 20. Yeah, and some we've actually been conservative back. Yeah, I think the 4B was actually, it was supposed to be 26 or something. Back.
Yes. So, and again, what we're looking at doing with this is, I guess, looking at what's the scenario for this example. If this gets us through the next 12 months, we can then roll that up into an asset management plan and say, this works because we've tried it here, if that's where we want to go. So, and also, I guess the big thing for this is how does that affect our budget? If we were to do that, we can get 42 kilometres. It is a top up, and we're looking at a $2 million budget spent. At the moment, we're at 1.48. Long-term financial plan or asset management prediction is about that 1.4, 1.5 million. So we're an extra $500,000 up. Do we have the capacity to do that? At the moment, we're looking at a $2.2 million movement. We are about 55, 60% of the way through that. So that was the 1.4 million plus the top up of the 760, which is the accumulated depreciation indexation, for better word. So can we deliver this? We're on track to deliver. For 9 months, we can deliver this. For 3 months, we can then deliver Scariff blocks. So again, it keeps that full utilisation for that full 3-person crew, the grade of the wood carpenter. So that's the intent of work. So again,
Just give fairly fast there. So just to clarify, unlike previous discussions where you were saying you made maybe 2 crews, you're now saying that would be the work for 1 crew to do construction for 9 months and then do Scariff and top up for the other 3 months. So it would only be 1 crew.
correct, yes. So we're looking at saying that let's use the best crew we've got, the best available, and for every day, let's see what they can do. We know in winter time, when you have a lot of rain, drying back or the hardening surface of our country roads is limited. So you want to try and, I guess, not resheet during those 3 or 4 months. However, the same crew is then can Scariff because you've got that follow-on rain, and we'll go back and it will get better bang for buck. We're saying that if we can get full utilisation with the same equipment, potentially we're going to have to buy new equipment yet, but let's give it another 12 months. You've pushed it, not you've pushed us, you've provided us an opportunity to say, can you do $2.2 million worth of work in-house? At the moment, we're sort of trajectory to get it done. Even if we're a couple of $100,000 off, we're still pushing towards that 2 million. So again, this is where we say, can you deliver? We can. We've shown that we can deliver that. So again, our unit rates, as you can appreciate, last year we were $76,500 a kilometre for 150 mil resheet, 50 kilometres lead on average. So now we're looking at $56,000 to $42,000 a kilometre. So again, it's just trying to get them as efficient as what we can do. We continue with our process, continue with what we do. We keep consistent, scarifying and resheeting. So scarifying through the year, resheeting after that is what we're trying to improve. What we're trying to offer.
The main contributor to that would be that we're not actually resheeting to 150 mil. That's right. We're using less product. Yeah.
Yes. And when you break down the cost scenario from get to the next screen for me, please. When you break down the cost scenario in regards to what does it cost to run this resheeting program, we've got the labour component. So right down, we've got rubber, which we are negotiating the extension of a 3-year contract. So for next year and the year after, we're looking to extend our contract. So working out the rates there. So I've got a $13.60 per tonne. That's supply, so crush and supply. That's some contingencies within that. Rubber we actually get 50 kilometre lead. So we know that from there to Lameroo on that sort of sphere, that's an average. If we go and do works in Lameroo, then we need to make sure we do works in Lameroo, close to the pit, or alternatively we go to Murrayville to get from there. So rubber, everybody there, and labour, overheads have gone up a little bit, so that's the cost of us running a business behind the scenes. Not overly in favour of that. That's what the figure is. We need to make sure we're more efficient in the back end. Plant recoveries, to put some contingencies in plant recoveries, resheeting rates are $85,000 for 150 mil resheet or 76 last year, which is based on square metre. So we do have a more mature asset management plan, we can work square metres. So if we do go wide for certain roads instead of kilometres, we can work our units.
Just as an interesting fact too, that 150 mil when the last asset management was done in 2023 was $5.20 per metre square.
Yeah.
is what they quoted us.
So you index that.
What we gave them.
Yeah, you index that by 5% per year, you're looking at about $9-ish. But at the moment, we're sort of above that. So and that's due to a whole range of different things in terms of inflation, construction cost increases, fuel, et cetera, et cetera. So, and again, the majority of that cost is the materials cost. So there's some bare bones what we can do versus what that is.
What can't exceed how much the actual rock costs.
We're so careful. So having no in the district is such a, it's doing it, Ben's doing it with his own timeline.
So again, this is very transparent regarding how we develop what we do. Just to say that there's rhyme and reason for it. So we're trying to knock down and say we reckon we're within 5% of that. So it's not a shovel-ready project as such, but it's very close to getting to that. We analyse the information that comes back through labour, through its cost, part companies to get to these figures. So pretty,
Do you have, so in that model where you've got all the predictions and where it's going to be, have you done any work, and I assume we've got enough records to be able to say what have our 4A and 4B in particular, what have they been likening it? Because I'm sure there are roads that have gone through their cycle already. So that would be the first question. So has that been done and sort of put against the 20 years to say, well, this is actually going to be around the month? Because if I use Schiller Road and that as an example, yes, they come up with scarified, magnificent compared to what it was, but there are some problems that are pretty significant that are coming in. That's obviously less than 12 months. Trowbridge Road was the same, which once got dropped time naturally. And it's not saying it's a bad job, but it's just saying that will need some work before they that's where the cancer sort of cuts in. So just sort of seeing with that 20 years, that's just maintenance, you say, build a bomb. Just that's where the great thing previously, which is just great drops to blow out again 4 weeks later. It was problem.
yeah, and our approach at the moment, as you appreciate, the road policy says those roads 4 times a year. We know that with a drier winter we had last year and hot summer, we haven't been able to do 4 grades a year. We can, but it's just going to blow away. So it's under, through the road policy, it's under my direction that we do or not do summer grade. Basically said, let's pull up on that. But also pulling up on that, we scarify the major roads once or twice a year. It'd be great if we do them twice a year. Now got staff that now sort of appreciate what they can do. Again, it's a tool in a toolbox. We can now look to scarify. Once we're starting to build our team, so you have the 3-person construction crew that continues to build confidence and skill set and experience, we can then drop those back into scarifying during winter time. So I love being able to put scarifying blades on all of our graders in the right 3 or 4 months of the year, 2 months of the year. If we have a really wet winter, which someone's promised me that, so hot summer, wet winter, we should be able to scarify potentially, which means some of our roads have big potholes in, one patrol can fix that. So our local roads have one patrol. Generally, they're the worst ones because they get less maintenance or they're on the periphery of our program. So it's dry when they do it or really wet. So I try to work to that. But again, it's a tool in our toolbox. Scarifying is a trick to be able to maintain our road surface, but once a year is not going to work. But you need to do it when it's dry, when it's wet enough. But having a very dry spell, that's where it's difficult to maintain roads. And you'll see for some of the locals to go down Cape and Board, that road was pretty terrible just after Christmas because of that worn right the way through. We deep ripped it, scarified it, laid it back down, ready for the trucks to go to cover it. But it did make it very dusty throughout the end of January and early February. So again, that approach, we need to make sure there's enough water. So if that answers your question. In terms of the road last resheeting, we do have a system that's picking up that data. Having a road estimation system, we can then make sure that is in one, we can use it. At the moment, it's in multiple areas, from works budgets to works programs, completed works is 100% accurate, which is where we want to get to. And again, when we've got $80 million worth of assets, we need to make sure that we know what we know and we maintain what we know. So unlike a vehicle, something else, our roads probably don't have the rigorous data. But having snap sensor, being able to use some of that as works management tool, having a road asset management system, we're heading to, again, taking away the personalities and doing process. That's where we're headed.
It'd be fair to say, because the only reason I ask that is obviously a lot of process that would be data, just trying to build models, might not have the intensity of horticulture farming that goes on certain roads at certain times. So I guess yours is that we start with 20 years, 20, 30, and then as that data comes in and matures and gets fed into this, you might say, oh, geez, we're going to have to up these 4 roads are going to have to come down to 15 because they just got flogged. Some of the roads you mentioned, and War as an example, and there'll be others around the place. Whereas it might be that they're 4A, but in another location doesn't get the same hammer, and therefore those can go stay at 20.
It's a conversation about
Things we go to Richmond.
Well, yeah, but also about looking at maybe there's another above or up. You know, there's talk about we can do, but trying to lose money. But maybe there is like a relative significance extra one on top that needs to be treated a little bit different. Yeah, if it's not a separate, forget it. Listen to us. See you later. It's this is organic.
I think as a system we can put road data, for example. So if we had a travel count on Clayton Water, for example, and there's a lot of vehicles, we can put permits, etc. on there. So what's the percentage of heavy vehicles that's going to do more damage than the equivalent 20 cars, for example? So we can then start to model that, and hopefully this time next year we can then have a model to say this is where this better meets what we believe we are seeing.
And I think it also strategically, you've summed it up already, it's taking it into a process of procedure and making people saying this road needs that or that road needs that, because we've got to insulate it against individuals who may not work here in the future or chambers that might be here in the future. So that the system drives what's needed, not individuals putting their opinion in there, because it's almost like you've got critical infrastructure that you can't afford to defund or underfund because it creates such a problem at the other end. Yeah, so I think it's great idea.
So again, that's our 26-27 resheeting costs, broken down. Next one, please. How does that rate in regards to our asset management plan? So our long-term financial plan, our asset management plan was done in 2023 for infrastructure. We were looking at 1.426 million. So on the right side down the bottom, you've got road resheeting, road reseals, and sit-on-mess replacements. They were the only assets in infrastructure and plant equipment where we put budget allocation in or a forecast budget spend. So we will divert a little bit away from the long-term financial plan and the asset management plan to say, based on what we're projecting, can we move a few things around to make sure that we are getting our goals?
Isn't it right though that we are required to have the updated depreciation in this budget because we took the hit last budget just as an interim because we didn't have the figure when we should have?
Yes.
Which is most likely going to exceed this.
Yes.
So that means that we have to then generate new long-term financial plans and update all those things anyway. It's not like that wasn't going to be the thing coming in once those numbers hit.
Yes. This is just saying that currently on the books, this is what we should be looking at, 1.4 million. We know that the asset management plan is going to come through, which will drive a work program. So what do we need to spend, and council can sign off on that. That will then, the asset management plan will also drive long-term financial plan, which is what it's saying. So therefore, there is those levers to move around. CWMS, we did 180,000 this year for renewals, etc. Whereas we only had, if you look back previously, there was $30,000 this time last year. So again, it's the being transparent in regards to where we sit, what we need to move around. It's not saying we're just going to grab 2 million and just go and do it. We're saying that we're 25% above that. And then we can talk later on about where we might be able to get those potential savings across that total cap. In general, I've had a quick chat to our finance person. we're looking at about $3.9 million capital spend potentially, removing depreciation. So again, it's saying that where do we sit within that sort of realm? So bump down a little bit is where we're looking for reaching. And again, that is maximising or optimising what our current staff do with our current equipment, and it's what we have full control over by managing our cartage and haulage contracts as well.
Yeah, it's
General conversation is not saying that around number, which is what we're delivering this year, we have 4.7 million. So it's not, I guess, throwing the budget out completely, it's just sort of working.
But that's not taking into account sealed, is it? Because my understanding, well, as I've said to Jason numerous times, I think I've said in these workshops, we were told in previous years that depreciation for sealed roads should be something like $6,000 to $8,000 a year, and spending $150,000 to $200,000 a year, which is kind of why the sealed network is also being degraded. Such a certain roads you can barely get down without going through the broken edges. So is that this? I'm just mindful that we're speaking about a number now without actually. Is the sealed road one legitimate, one not legitimate? It's not legitimate. So is that depreciation, which is not a dirty word to calculate for what we should be spending, is that 250 right? Because it seems not told us, but maybe we'll be told this.
And I guess what we're saying is that's what's on our current books. So being transparent, that's what's there. Where we go from there, like the information coming through, we're looking at resheeting at the moment, look at roads, sealed roads in a second.
Yeah.
That will throw that number in. So between now and when you adopt your budget in hopefully June, we'll then have that kind of list in place.
No, I just wanted to say, figure it through. We've been told previously sealed for a start, so the 3.9 is 4.4. Four.
Yeah, there's still a little bit of that.
And yeah, so it's just
So if CMS things are supposed to be self-funded, back up with those figures.
So this is quick question. This is capital. So you have an asset management plan that tells you what assets you've got, and then you say that we are going to replenish those for the next 10 years. We're going to replenish half of those assets. This is the figure that drops out of the asset management plan previously in 2023. We've just adopted the latest asset management we're going to. It's out for consultation at the moment. That figure will then get adjusted to this. So again, it's an evolution of where it sits.
You should see that because it's funding itself.
Correct. These are the
Well, it should be.
correct. These are the categories that we are, I guess, bulking up. What is our capital program? At the moment, it's saying that there's 3 capital items. The last budget year, we're saying that there's more categories to that, and therefore we're putting more emphasis, or we're having the discussions about where we spend our money. So, and then we upgrade our asset management plan accordingly. So,
Our current asset management is saying we shouldn't be spending anything for stormwater.
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
They're basically saying there's no forecast for renewals of this. However, condition rating come back curving this time last year. Bething Street and Man Terrace, Man Avenue were up there for replacements. So again, but it wasn't identified in the asset management plan. So therefore, we're trying to improve our asset management planning to make sure they are in there. And having a 10-year works program is to say these are what projects they're in, they're coming up. Therefore, it gives council more confidence.
Yeah, the curbs, the storm towns are pretty bad condition.
Yeah, they're all.
Just got an email back from stormwater again. Side subject asset management plan for stormwater. We're very close to that. They're very close to working on that. But they've already given us some figures. We're already having discussions about what this program may look like and sort of dollar spend on that. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks we can present that. So definitely in the next budget workshop, stormwater one that we will set up massively very as well in that second.
Yeah. Should you think? Keep going. Well, I got to answer Trevor's question. I mean, so there is a question on the agenda. We'll get the answer, which is to give us a reconciliation of CWS income versus expenditure, because it is meant to be a user-based system, but the cost goes into capital. and the income goes to general revenue. It's not. So it's the only way we know how far does it reach, including previously getting income on doing expenditure in capital. Where's the point at which it, how far in the future is it before it breaks even, so to speak? And that's the only reason to do it, because it's not a separate account. That's in and out.
Be not so.
So how come we've got a figure? Do more stuff.
Correct. So this is based on what current information is in our asset management plan. It's not saying what we will be doing moving forward. So it's basically saying that out of the book, this is sort of where we might if we making a conscious effort to go from that. And there's good reason for going away from the CWMS we talked about, Nadine, that's for pump replacements. That's going to make sure that we can have automation across the CWMS now. So it means when the pumps are down, we can get onto in terms of bores, making sure that we've got bore water, etc. in there. That was an asset class that's, I guess, sitting silent from infrastructure at the moment. Whereas we bring that back in and saying recreational assets and bore water, etc. is a key asset class. We should be putting some money towards it, and therefore we need to look at how that is.
Yeah, this is the full picture. Yeah.
But I think it's important to say that the 10-year, that is the 10-year current plan, and that is the one they have to use. There's no alternative to that until the administration brings an alternative set of asset management plans, lighting, because that bore infrastructure, it's not a guesstimate. I mean, the bore goes down, it's got an estimated life at Barilla because of, iron oxide of X, and it might have a different one of uranium, whatever, and that's what populates the plan. We believe the bores go a 25-year life. This is the cost. That's what the asset management plan so we need to project to spend on.
But it's over.
That's what we don't have, and so that's the work now, to try and put that in,
Put everything in
this plan, so that because we need to leave this budget 10-year financial plan that's been upgraded to include what the current state.
Right.
That's indexed every year. Surprises at the end.
Because it's surprises.
Yeah, it would be.
So, yeah.
So we index it every year.
Just to clarify, these figures in here are generally CPI or they're 3% index or something.
Yeah.
So they're the base minimum. So in terms of 2-3 years ago, we didn't know the cost was significant, but we actually know what it's are, so we put that in.
Yeah, and they're all in now. Yeah, they're all.
That's why the expected depreciation hit is going to be so low, because we don't have the index.
Going to keep going.
Because that would only go 3%.
Not that we're going to actually be able to spend, but we're going to see what we need to spend.
Yeah, like I said, this is a buckets of money, and then there'll be a balancing chat with you.
Yeah.
What at the end.
What do you want to do?
Yeah. We can nudge, but it'll basically be just get us.
Okay, next slide. So what's our current reading program look like this year? This is basically just the road. So we're familiar with what roads we are doing. If you look at the ones that are shaded across, we've still got Claypan East, still will to finish in our initial program. Claypan Bore is underway. We got about 1.5 kilometres of roll out there at the moment, and Ball Road we're on our last kilometre of resheeting. So again, the 1.4 million program, we're pretty well targeted with that. Next slide.
Claypan East, that's the one I'm in.
Correct, yes. So when you come off of the bitumen, it's that first, 3.8 kilometres there, which is a bus route, and there's not a lot of material.
It's pretty shabby.
It's great. So again, the reason for bringing this up is the council wanted to, I guess, extend the segments in here. In terms of we've already started this road, do we continue finishing that road segment or those segments? The next one, please. This is the second lot of resheeting that we got allocated from the indexation. So already done Hammond. And we've still got Belis Road, which will be starting also at this point towards the end of April.
So we're going to spend it.
Hawthorne and Silo Road has to be done as well. So And again, that's the rubber section coming out of Pinaroo, Silo, goes into Hawthorn, and then goes into Longcombe. So,
Is it Cornish Road?
yeah.
That's sure.
Yeah.
That's a dirt track.
It's still not sitting.
Well, it's a good road.
So again, when you have 1.48 and 740, we're looking around that $2.2 million worth of program. So that sort of shows how we're tracking. Next one, please. Priorities for resheet program. So again, this is incomplete at the moment, but gives a guide of, we talked about in September some of the road segments. So the ones that we on that list, we didn't approve at the time, they've added to this list, and then we can continue to work through that.
Southern.
So again, we're looking at a split across our district. We're looking at the different classifications. So again, doing the 20 kilometres in 16 kilometres in 4As, 21 kilometres in 4B, and then 4.8 kilometres total in 5A, 5B. So that's a breakdown. So we're saying that we'll come up with a list. They're the ones which we've already talked about. Continue those, and once we get the information coming back through, populate that next time around.
Is that keeping the machines down south?
That's working on, so and again, it's finishing Haywood, Allenby, and Woodport. So Bew South, Haywood, and Allenby. It's that little triangle. It's heading to complete all of Allenby on the western end. So again, it's trying to make sure that all the road segments are done, so we can say Allenby's basically up to scratch. In terms of Bew South, it's that little bit between Haywood and down to Allenby. So again, it's trying to finish off road networks. Drayton North and Paragon North, we have concerns from local residents down there. Requesting us to look at that. Yes, there's deficiencies down there. And again, doing those roads close to means we can then extend and go further west, so further east, and then have more roads that are around further south, Duckworth, for example, sort of eastern areas. So, and again, using the opportunity to maybe use Lehman's Pit for a bit further north pits, now this is Murrayville as well. It brings us more opportunity to east. Correct. And that's why we haven't put the additional roads in there. So it's 3.3 and 9 Ks class 3 that we need to put in there. So again, we'll populate that. But if you have any wish lists of where you see where we need to supply that, we'll to our next meeting. So again,
Just depends who's doing it.
yep.
So just so I understand this right, because we started out, you've been saying it's all process driven and port driven. And now to say, is there any roads we want to put in there, feels a bit, that's against that theory, because it should just be where are the next set of roads and where does it work efficiently for you. So, you know, if it ends up that we're doing, because that's 12.7 Ks you're saying is undefined at this point. So what you're saying there's which is sort of whatever that is, 30% or something. Are you saying there is that those roads there are the next heaviest roads to do? Actually, it's more than that. There's 2, 3, so it's probably 20 Ks. Have you got roads that are in the other district and you're moving through over there to do that? Or, because that's what Luke's saying.
Because if you even think that gap, okay.
I think last year, administration did that.
Yeah,
So they're saying,
and you have anyone behind that. Because the next, you know, when you're talking about the next plan, if you showed us the next plan, next meeting, so it might be, well, what are those other, because there's 20 Ks in there. You've got 4, 3.3 and 3.3 again. So depending on what you say those rates are, based on what you know, tell us. But then it might be, and then next year, the next series of roads, where would they, if you're talking about 10-year plans.
Correct.
So I think that's really important for the district and the county.
Yeah,
because leaving your gear in one place is efficient.
Yep.
Obviously, moving it end to end is not. As long as every see that the roads in Eden district are getting fair.
So this year, everything, or next year, everything's down here. You just got to make sure that the year after, everything's up there.
Yeah, so
No, I just think about better. Yeah, don't get that.
And just to clarify as well, this is basically saying, one is how many kilometres do you want to do? Are you happy with that? The second thing is, this is a roads list, a draft roads list, based on what council's already seen in the past. It's not saying this is going to be the final product. Also waiting on the information coming through, which I was hoping to get through before this meeting, but it hasn't through yet, to say, what does the computer say? We drive those roads and then we finesse them for the next meeting and say, here is our draft road. This is purely to say, to fill in the spreadsheet, or fill in the spreadsheet to say, this is what council's already seen and that you've already considered or had those roads presented to you. Here is the list.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we're going to do these, we're just saying that if you want to do 42 k's of roads, we can do a skinny resheet, which will give you 50% improvement of rubber. They're about 60% improvement for rubber at a $2 million budget, based on trying to get around as many routes as possible.
For me personally, I mean, I'm happy to have thinking and make decisions on process, on potential budget allocation. But I've always said I want the powers that be, the experts you got, to come with the best intelligence you can and tell me which roads need to do, rather than me making an opinion about which road should be done. Because that's an arbitrary thing. I think it's terrible. Someone else thinks it's great. Someone else thinks it's no good. You know, like it's not the way. It's historically how we've done roads. And I guess we've done this because we have no confidence in the outcome. We want to handle. So council has put to us the recommendation of the road program, and we have confidence that they brought to us the best program, bang for the buck, for the constituency. And that's over a 10-year program that can change from year to year because you have things pop up. I want to make a decision on money and you know, process, because you've proved that works. And the feedback I'm getting from the public, even if it's about something else they've got a negative opinion on, it often starts from I've been driving the roads, and you know, whatever they're doing is having a positive effect. So people with properties are saying, look, we're happy with the improvement. So that means putting the amount of money, which is what we did, but what can't be in the future. Roads have been to the detriment of everything else, and that can't be the continued thing. We've got to do the roads and still do the other business of the constituency as well.
Yeah.
So I want to defer to you, and you bring me, and you'll get that intel. You said it just started to come in.
And behind the scenes, that's why we presented this list.
Yeah.
Is say this is not the final list. This is what council was saying before.
Yeah.
We will work over the next little bit to get it. But I guess the themes coming through are based on data, based on a 20-year useful life, get more kilometres done, based on the regional wide approach, based on condition rating, etc. We put all that in and give you a list. So, you know, happy with that. And I guess the other suggestion has been as well is make it a priority, work on a priority list and say, here is our top priorities, 20 or 30 roads, for example, and the budget will go down to X amount. If we're more efficient what we can do, we can then bounce it like. So it's more trying to work towards the end goal of getting to all of our roads and making sure they're all up to scratch. So
I think you could add into that, and I'm not sure you're aware of it anyway, Jason, I said to speak about it. You know, that's that shovel-ready list, so that if you consider there's an SLRP, a special local roads project initiative that might capture a road because it goes cross-border into another council, is potentially a commodity route. You know, and I use the example of the Thomas's feedlot that's getting expanded. I'm led to believe there's going to be almond husks coming down from the Riverland, and you'd think that's probably going to come down the highway and then turn left and come across the Mallee Geranium, or you'd think that Geranium North Road potentially is an interconnector when Thomas feedlots go in. So is there a thing where we can apply for that, you know, even including roundabout amount of stuff, like that's going to be pretty horrendous with that traffic going through there. So those sorts of things, and maybe the rate gets some getting, because you highlighted these other ones that, you know, even Mallee Hills, you know, traffic goes up the Billiat, but, you know, Mallee through Claypan Bore up through Mallee Hills might actually be a a commodity route through to Billy Act, don't know. In which case it might go on SFRP funding.
It's road traffic count will sort some of that out.
Because there's now sweet potato things on that road, business model has changed. So we'll have all confidence in you.
We do really need to stop spending only our money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we do need to do some. Agencies that are quite truthful of what they're actually doing on their land. You'll get into it.
I don't think we have one being primary production, do we?
Well, it's like if you put, like the land value, if you got a block of land that's only 16 acres or 20 acres or whatever, and you've got a feedlot on that.
Yeah.
Then you should be paying a slightly higher rate.
No, you probably can.
Well,
We'll have a race.
No, you have a raise $20. Could be worth. Yeah.
What's better for the reality? That there's no. It's just where the general value as a feedlot versus value.
Yes.
20 acres block.
yeah, that's what
You'd think it'd be higher, but.
Awesome. So just to recap, that's an unto road network. So looking at adjusting useful life, looking at about a $2 million project, $2 million capital works program, which should come in line with where we see our valuations looking at, and also having our data through the next couple of weeks to be able to populate that list. So, any other questions on unsealed roads? Are we heading in the right direction? Happy?
To Doug.
what's it.
But yeah, head of,
Cool.
Yeah, but next year we shouldn't do one.
I guess if we could see the list, then maybe it's going to be next 27, 28, so you could compare them a bit.
It's just because what we're seeing lately is that all the equipment is down this way, and it's been down this way. We haven't had anything up there. We haven't had a grader. So,
But I mean, that's in your structure too, because you want to do full roads, which is fair enough too, so.
Well, we cut hook last year, we was doing Nichols Road again, that's this time of year up there. It was someone last year, I reckon, and everyone was cut.
the equipment started up there, yeah.
But I understand why administration's left those last there, is because they did that last year, they said, these are the roads we should do, and we said, no, don't do them, do some other ones. So they've said, right, these are the ones, and there's some gaps there, if you want to throw some in, do it, so that they're following our lead, you know.
This is also, well, yeah, so this will be confirmed or not confirmed in the next couple of weeks as well, I think. And you've mentioned it to me as well in our chats that I think the NTRO are going to have the same opinion as Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Ben's intelligence is going to be any different than TRO. It's going to be a confirmation, but the difference is they'll reduce this 10-year plan to say, well,
yeah,
put everything else aside, take away personalities, districts, emotions. This is what we suggest your road works program should be for the next 10 years. Not to say it's going to be locked in, but I'll be pretty confident that's not going to be too far different to what Ben's suggestions will be. And therefore you go, right, and you'll see where it all lies. So, you know, you would think the highest use is probably in the core, one would think, but then.
No, probably throw him up there for you next time.
Yep.
See how wrong he is.
Looking forward. Okay, we'll move on. Seal roads. So again, using the similar approach, we've got a little graph on the top and right hand side. So if we do preventative maintenance, what's preventive maintenance? It's basically a renewal reseal of a road. The reseal is trying to protect the base underneath. And you'll see with data coming through like protect the seal, and you have base failure, it costs you lots of money to do it. So it's the stitching time. Can we protect the seal? Can we protect the road pavement, and work from there? So at the moment, we're saying we've got 134 kilometres of class 3 roads. That's previous asset road register. We're getting some figures coming through now, which we're cleansing the data from Nitro, but that's sort of where we sit 134 kilometres, which is 921,000 square metres. Why is the square metres important? Because not all roads are the same width, the same aprons, etc. So it's a square metre. In terms of where we should be spending our money, again, 100% based on our seal road network, wherever that is, we should be maintaining. At the moment, we've got a useful life of 25 years. We're suggesting that we should keep that at 25 years at this point in time, based on a re-seal scenario. So, and some of our seals, we do have a little more information on some of those. Some of those seals are getting to 20, 25 years old. So we're starting to look at that data coming through. Again, so older seals are some of the ones that are in a local road network. Some of them may have been put off due to other auxiliary works. For example, curb works, woodland works, etc. There's examples where we have some roads based on the condition of curb. Divide 134 by 25, we're doing 5.36 per year, which is 3,700 square metres.
37,000.
37,000. It's not 42 kilometres, so they reckon that clean. A design seal could be 14.7. So what is a 14.7 seal? There's a 14 stone, and then you put a 7 stone over the top. So it's basically 21 mil depth. It is a little bit rougher than what we currently have at the moment. Some of our road seals are 5 or 10 mil top stone. What it does mean is it looks a 5 mil stone. In hot weather, you'll get the bitumen that comes through, and therefore it will be very tacky, but it will look like an asphalt surface. What we try to do is have stone on there so you don't have those bleeding characteristics. So again, 14.7 is double tap seal. It does have a lot more robustness if there was trucks going through there, like a rubbish truck or the occasional delivery truck. So in terms of unit rate for a seal project, just go to the next page, please. Calculation based on what we currently have quotes coming in for, and our valuation is about $24 a square metre, which will take us to that $1,000. At this point in time, we look at those prices in detail, but again, we need to get some quotes from that, plus additional work associated with cellar spaces. So, what does council think about that?
Expected, but not even. Can I ask you though, so that's talking about risk seals.
Yes.
You may say you've got, it's fine. At the moment, because we've been to maintain, like I said earlier, significant roads that have portions of roads that have issues. We're obviously dealing with a couple, but there are Billy Edwards, we don't do the whole thing, has some significant areas of breakable cycle to the point where it's almost, if you want to stay this side of the white line, just about going to hit that thing. But even some domestic roads, towns, like Shandor South as an example, coming in, there's potholes that get filled time sprinklers go. The other side with Tamps and gearing, but I mean, you look at that and go, that's failing. So it's kind of, is there a bigger layer about that stuff? Like, is there work that needs to be poured up, or is that in this where you say, look, we're not going to redo 5.3 days per year, we're probably going to do 4 days, 1.3 value is going to go into doing these other projects? Like, how does that?
Yep. And again, this is law of averages, so we're saying, yeah, should we be doing 5.3 kilometres? We're nowhere near that at the moment.
No.
Even if that rate, previously our valuation rate is in the order of about $8 per square metre. So when you index that by 8%, etc., you're only looking 12, 13, 14. So you're not really, it's not a true indication. I got caught out by the curb rates, indexed it, and it was nowhere near the mark where that's where we're doing. So I guess it's just a point in the sand to say, if we've got so many square metres of seal rates, we don't want to change our useful life yet, because there's implications for our renewals. It will come through evaluations, and there's been some information coming through the last 24 hours that gives me some, I guess, indication that it's to go north and go south. What this doesn't do is it doesn't fix our road shoulders, it doesn't fix our pavement defects, etc. What we're trying to do by pushing this scenario is there roads that are in that sort of, go back to the previous screen, if there is some roads that are in that, the red line that's starting to come down poor condition, is there some that we can push out, put a space seal on in the next year, and then that will give us another 20 years, 25 years, and then we can start approaching the big projects. Again, this is all in discussion because there's some big projects. We'll get some information on coming shortly, where we do have payment scenarios that we have issues with.
Is there any talk that you've heard, or maybe you, Jason, of obviously local roads community for LRCI, that dot.
Correct.
Then there was some talk that the government might bring back some co-funded stuff, because that was used primarily there, did the white. That was something that you used sorts of things. Has anyone heard any talking and stuff like that, or just okay? Because everything I read inside local government just seems to be all the money's going to go areas for all their bright shinies, and we can go back to their roads, but because that's the important part. You could convert 400,000 to become $1 million because you get some code. You can do those couple of key projects.
So scenarios, if we look at allocating $500 million, whatever it is, to reseals, then we've got some money that's sitting in there. So you're getting rate base for that. In terms of external funding, we just talked about it before, black spot funding. We've got the current target junction upgrade through black spot funding. That project's worth about 250 grand. We're not sure what the contribution will be, but there might be a council contribution to that match, maybe at 30 to 60%.
You say
Submitted that application, so that's in.
Yeah.
We haven't heard back about that. So sometimes it might be 100% funded, it might be 33% or 66% funded.
that's not fixing the corner. That's just
That's fixing the corner.
That's fixing the
That's fixing the corner. So that's the corner scenario. So instead of us fixing that, there's guardrail, that's super elevation, so building the corner up, it's putting guardrail in the corner next to the farm's property. It's relining and re-signage and reseal. So again, that's using someone else to try and fix that section up. In terms of the rest of the target well, we've got a consultant teed up in regards to doing testing along there to find out what Basin Council's previous advice was to say, why has it failed? What's the extent of it? What are we going to do to fix it? And provide a scope for us to go out to get a contract to do it. There's 3 contractors that should be able to find us a solution. A couple of them have those technical expertise, but we want to be able to go to market, open tender and say, what's it going to cost us? Rip the band-aid off and think that may come in expensive. So again, it's working through, we need to put some money towards that. Also, Tarryville, Draining Terrace, Dranium, South Road, we've got that feasibility study in regards to the freight network at Carcoon as well. So again, that's ticking along to give us some more shovel-ready concepts, etc., to work through that. If we can get more funding, then let's go. So that's black spot funding. It did meet the criteria from our point of view. There was 2 deaths in the last 5 years. Therefore, we put that in. Hopefully, we get a good result. We're suggesting with that is until we hear back, we're not going to allocate any council budget for that, because we'll do a potentially between now and June, we may hear back. But again, if there's capital money, we can then try and look to put back to council.
So can I just query on that, because that's obviously a very not only topical but important one. The feedback that councillors were asked for by the lady that was doing the thing, as far as I'm aware, most people's feedback was that it should be a T intersection and stop the traffic, because if you don't stop it, you stop just go swashes under the truck.
But her advice says she's.
Well, I'm just wondering, did her advice come back contrary to that? I'm just surprised that's what's gone in. Because that doesn't seem like it. Out of the 3 options that were originally put forward.
So to answer that, through black spot funding, it needs to meet certain criteria. So there's a cost estimate ratio that they basically work out to say, with this one, the cost estimate was if you improve the corner and make it as safe as possible, there's a benefit to black spot funding, and you're more likely going to get black spot funding improvements. T intersection, I'm pretty sure I know she looked at it, that was quite cost prohibitive. So therefore it may not meet the funding. So again, it's that, can we fix it short term and get some external funding versus going through and taking out some vegetation, etc. And again, be mindful of the black spot funding. You need enough information to be able to put a project forward that you can go shovel ready and build it, and therefore they will consider funding. If it's conceptual stuff, it takes more time and it's probably unlikely to get that funding straight up. So if council was to go and do a full design for that, go through the corner, get all the approvals needed for that, and it's a lot more expensive than this approach, we may not get that cost benefit ratio.
Would you take, say, turn it, say, was a design, I got a copy of the design, it's through design, so I've got a copy of that, it's just been a straight team. So I'll give it to you next.
Like I said, the recommendation for better work from the traffic engineers is a T intersection is no safer than the current. You're better off to try and straighten the through traffic and have the other approach coming to a T, which is a longer term solution, but it's more expensive solution.
Just think if they change it from the Viper rate and change that, you end up with trucks tipping over when they turn, come onto that other road, you have them tipping over when they go turn that, what, because you have the cameras wrong on the road, so I make it worse if they don't do they talk about, so. Yeah.
And again, it's based on the road is a seal road, so therefore that would take priority. The traffic are showing that that's where most of the traffic goes, north south. The lesser traffic coming in through the unsealed road is the lower priority, and that's why there's a corner there. At T junction, you'll still have you're giving priority to the lower end. Hence, that's why I was.
Yeah. When that camp was on the years ago, it was the other way. It's going up the Bible, but the joint south. So it's been black, but it's different. So yeah.
Would that, if that was the end scenario, could it have the addition of speed bumps, speed up lot problem?
Well, should have
Speed, because that would be getting, because the problem is not, they're not slowing down through obviously changing the cam.
that's all.
I think I just drive semi-trailers and slow, but a speed to 40, they're not drive through that, 70 k's an hour, or so it's 40 k's slower down. Come on, speed up.
I think if they change the cam, just give us a bit more help. Yeah.
So I know we're focusing on that, but it's obviously.
So yeah, I'll put it in there in terms of we're not going to allocate any council fund towards that project yet until we get approved.
Yeah.
And if we get approved between now and 30 June, we can then put that in for consideration.
No jump at the gun. See what it is.
Correct. Special local roads funding. We've been talking to Murraylands LGA in regards to whether council's affiliate road is one of the high priorities, and yes, it is. Out of all our road projects, that's going to be a high priority in terms of the region. So potentially it may be considered for external funding. Reason for Loxton Wake where you got funding was B triples on. They didn't approve B triples until the road was basically built. So potentially there's going to be a increased pressure, for a better word, that once the top end of the road is complete, which almost is now, I think in their final last bit of staging, then there'll be more pressure on council to upgrade our section. Question is, does council want to look at funding it? We're halfway through a proposal to put in special local roads funding for that project. 500,000 to match, $1 million from them, 60-30, to try and get some of that external funding. Whether council receives that, whether it gets approved, we can then potentially go down that approach if it is. But I guess discussions today is, one is if we're looking for external funding, that might be one that we can get external funding for, but we need some money to throw towards it. At the moment, we're not considering that in this budget proposal, and we'll bring it back to council as a variation between now and 30 June.
With curving and ceiling, that's all.
Correct.
So, like in the towns and stuff, there's a lot of really bad in there. We're just doing one street at a time, paying for the inefficiency of them coming out each year kind of thing.
Yep.
Is it better for us to maybe do a big section, maybe borrow some money to do that and have longer term savings? So maybe spend a lot of years, not spend something there for another 5 years, do it like that.
Correct. And that's what we'll be looking at, trying to build into our plan. Because yes, you're right. We'll go into the details a bit later on. We've got seal, you've got pavement, and you've got curbing, etc., which is a problem. Curbing is more expensive than basically a seal. Pavement is more expensive than all put together because you have to replace the seal. So again, the discussion that we're looking at is what's a kilometres of road we want to look at? What's that going to mean in terms of budget? And then what is that cost to deliver that? If we look at only spray seal for where we're trying to replenish the spray seal, then it's a very cheap option. If we're looking at fixing curbs prior to building road shoulders, Laramie South, your Billy, for example, put the shoulders up, which will then take money out of your potential reheating budget, because it's a payment-based scenario, before you then put a spray seal. So again, it's all that cost. So when you look at the $24 a square metre, there's a little bit of contingency in there for doing some patching, for a better word, within the seal. Shandos Terrace South, for example, you talk about the potholes, going back and doing small patching before you spray at the top. It's not doing major pavement works.
That's not doing any of the work.
Well, we want to finish this one, then we'll jump. That's a good question, but if we finish that, then we can go on to the third. I mean, you're saying that's in 3 segments, because that's only 10K you're talking about. So you're talking about 1.5 million is likely contribution. I go up down the road a fair bit now, going to see data revenue. I've never be true. So this is the classic, is that real? Because I can't think of what projects goes up and down that road from that district or to that district. That's not to say, because that has got shoulder issues. So if you can pick out the section with shoulder issues, maybe that's getting it done. My concern is, because we were asked to join in that last time when Maker did theirs, and it's like, well, we got a lot of pressing matters in our road network, and that wasn't in the highest order of those pressing matters. Go the other trucks wrong. So my question is, Joe, look, it's great to use that SLRP, but that feels like it's an initiative from the opposing council, and we obviously need to get our shoulder work done. So I think it's we need a case, like we need you to present, well, what is it to fix the shoulders versus what is it to do that? Would that fix it? Because it's not 500, it's 1.5.
Yeah. And
when would stage 2 and 3 happen? Because otherwise you're going to be faced with that for the next how many years, getting the same thing.
Plus, when they had traffic, get 2 cars and one kangaroo on that.
You don't park a lot of people, but it is breaking up fairly significantly.
So, and again, the reason for that is, if there's grant funding available, what is the road that's going to potentially be funded? And we say Billiot Road, that's a regional road that will potentially get funding. And there's a suggestion that it may get funding because of others. If that's not a vice priority, which I obviously believe it is, but it's a matter of saying, as a workshop, let's workshop that and say, let's come up with a rough costing, potentially put an application if needed to, again, trying to get funding from somewhere. Or look at some other projects, for example, Kakuma and the Dranian Collector Road, for a better word, in the freight route. Can we push that higher to deal with that current problems we're having down there? So again, that's where we need to try and push that through. Also, Tarragona Well Road was part of SLRP funding previously. So we've already used that money for doing Dranian South Road and Tarragona isn't. So we just need to be mindful of that.
We just need to spend another $1 million to get it.
Well, there's the repair part. There's also the extension, because we didn't use Kakuma, because Kakuma is the dirt part of it, which it was an option, but it was never taken. But the expansion of the Thomas Speed Speedline is something that's happening. That traffic is going to go up and down. And so, but that's just one of another thing, because 800,000 on unsealed, potentially 700,000 sealed, 600,000 to 700,000. And then there's still the other projects, the building stuff, as Campbell just said, footpath and curving, but also leaking down, whatever the goal of the project. So getting the big picture ball of it, where does it go, and still upgrading CWMS, because that's one of the things that you're maybe going to come here, I'm sure, about what is the totality of CWMS stuff that's going to be spent. It's not going to be 30,000 years. There's probably $1 million expense there as well. And we're going to, we're capped what we can do.
So I guess what I'm hearing is, if Billiot Road review program, anyone we're going to spend, we should consider, if we're looking at Kakuma, looking at potentially upgrading that part of resheeting and potentially sealing, that could potentially be push that forward for. So, but at this point in time, we're not allocating any funds towards that at this point. Also,
only makes by Matt.
Yeah, no. Yes, that's a feeling. See,
we should have shovel projects and stop spending. So I don't really If we're going to do the next 5 years or something, 10 years, and maybe we're not worried, if we can save $3 million, it makes sense to be doing that.
Yeah, but on a road that's doing nothing.
It depends, I don't know the exact scenario of this, but if the data's spend that, and like maybe it's not our highest priority, but like with a lot of the funding we don't get, like that federal assistant grant funding, 1% of the federal tax is supposed to go towards local councils. So they give half of that as a per capita payment, and the rest they make us apply for grants and stuff. So at the moment, we're missing out on 0.5% because we're not drafting anything. So there's a lot of money that we could be bringing to the community.
That's because we don't have the funds just to maintain the shit that we got.
Possibly, but I'm saying.
Just true.
Just saying if the opportunity comes up. That was. We need to make sure that, we need that more information on that specific one. Getting outside money for our staff is something we should. Absolutely.
100%.
Always,
The 100% of 3 billion in federal assistance grant that they do, that's the stuff that's inside local government where it goes to showing stuff and trunk infrastructure for developing regional centres and urban centres. This is from SLRP, which is 15% of our gets siphoned off by the state government before we ever get it, and goes into it. And they will have representatives on that bucket, I imagine, and they come up with a list of what goes into that. The regional body puts through a list of what we believe are our problems, and then that can be completely ignored by the state body, and then they'll allocate that much. Who has done pretty well over 6 months, and they'll come the other end of Cartoon. Yeah, and that's why it's saying that competing interest, because Lachlan might have used it for the top end for all these B triples that are rolling down, and Coorong used it for Cartoon. Well, the other end of it, because that same projection was a cinema. Yeah, something four or something beat up to a day. Yeah, they're all going to come through Cartoon straight to Drum.
got this.
So I agree that's 100% about that should be a project, as should Cartoon. I think the list that I saw Ben send around was saying if you did it properly, I think Cartoon or Turriga World was like $10-12 million as a project. Now, obviously, we could never fund that. Our ratepayers could never fund it.
No.
And that's where you've got to go and advocate to the state government for assistance, and also to Thomas Farms. So how do you fund it? The reason I'm saying that is we've got to be careful not to tie up too much of our capacity, because if that comes off, we want 3 months for that, and then we do that as a borrower. It's good borrow because it's a 25-50 outcome and GDP potential, but you've got to have capacity to borrow. So it's just a matter of having these guys give us the order to borrow from a network perspective, because they've got a bigger picture, hopefully.
No, I'm not sure before I do these decisions, but I want to have administration to come to us with ideas like that. Like, let's spend and not everyone.
That was one of the big advantages of the 10-year plans. If things have to be put forward or based on needs. Yeah.
Just I think one of the things that you've got to maintain awareness of and try and build into future planning is, historically, Neville summed it up in previous budgets, you should have all your capital works, you should have your roads, and exactly that would happen. The administration would come and say, we need to do, Charlotte might come with his list of $300,000 of work he wants done. Oh, we just won't do a road, and we pull it out. That's the easiest way to find money. And then year after year after year, we don't do things, and all of a sudden 10, 15 or 20 years later, holy shit, we've hurt our network, but every year it was good. We're getting the sugar hit, it was easy, the money was there. So it's got to be, whenever those things come, that's extra. It can't really come up critical infrastructure, not just roads, critical infrastructure, footpath, which stop footpaths I know of advocated, but we haven't spent through anything.
Yeah, not much year before, nothing.
Yeah.
So that is stuff we're spending.
Absolutely.
Like we're pulling.
Absolutely, we're doing it. So absolutely
We shouldn't be doing.
So that's why we need these plans to take all of the critical infrastructure, which footpaths and like broken footpaths and that are, and then there's the value add ones that you put on top of it. I mean, the spending so far pulled out, the buildings wasn't, you know, pending structure or anything like that. It was all aesthetics sort of thing, other than the gutters in Pinaroo. So yeah, but that's exactly. So we've got to be careful taking whatever, because it's all rates, taking whatever getting, you know, let's say there's $100 over that you borrow. And all of a sudden we have to say, future changes have to say no to buy because they haven't capacity because the rates. So it's just having the balance.
Every time we add something new, just adds
Well,
one,
that's
then you got to spend.
Next week. So, reseal list. The well. So we're looking at potentially 5.3 kilometres, but it's going to cost a fair bit. So obviously we will get some information in the next couple of slides to with that. But it's basically saying that do we want to be able to, in the next couple of weeks, I want to be able to find roads that we can simply do a reseal. So we can then work out, can we get a contract to reseal our roads to extend the seal on some of our roads?
And you're right.
Yes. So that way, that would say stitch in time. If we were to reseal some of our roads, if we get hold that seal, then we can look at other projects and stuff coming through. So again,
This is spraying seal on seal.
correct. Yes, it's not fixing the curbs, it's not fixing the pavement underneath. It's basically picking our worst roads that we can do, it's deteriorating, to maximise the longevity of that road surface. So we're going through, and you'll see some information shortly. But it's not trying to fix the well. It's not trying to fix base issues. Road Terrace, South Pinaroo, we've got that as an issue. We've got Well Road, which we'll be on shortly with that. So it's a matter of saying, is there some roads we can currently do? We used to spend $100,000 on reseal for townships. We're not spending that. We're putting it all into these big fixes. So we'll come back with some proposals there. But in essence, what we're trying to say is 25 years we should be doing 5Ks of reseal. What's the true value of that at the moment? It used to be $8 an application, index that. I'm saying it's around $24 a square metre ish. Doing some preliminary, doing some line marking, some patching beforehand. That's roughly $24, which means 900 ish is where we should be at. We know any of that at the moment.
Yeah, where was the Lameroo South Road there? Has that ever had anything done on that? Because that's been there for donkey's years that I remember, but nothing's ever been.
Let's go get some colleagues in.
Yeah.
In terms of the spray seal, and that's the information we want to be able to get. Is some of the stuff that was in the HTS report did action some of that.
Okay.
So that's why that data is not quite real. We're trying to update the data now, have all that, so we can then go to council in a month's time. So we'll just move on to the next bit. We'll complete.
You tell us what you think, Ben.
This is the future. This is the current, this is the future. So we had a vehicle that drove around, we captured all that. What does that look like for us? We've now got a portal, we can access, it's got all of our road information. So on the right hand side, you've got a graphical summary of all of our road seal roads. You've got SCI, which is Seal Condition Index. That's no different to what we did in the 2020 stuff with PCI, which is your pavement is underneath, your seal is what you see on top. The roads are.
We're not taking.
No. But the reason for is they pick that up because they were saying that the department is doing, but also we can compare what's Lovers Lane, for example, versus how's that sort of condition rating, etc. The reason why I did the main roads was the parking bays we own and maintain. So the ones down Main Street here, the ones down Shandos, the ones down Adelaide, for example, we have control over. So therefore, what's the condition rating of those? In the middle there, you see our road network. It's got the classifications in there. Yes, it's very small, so I apologise for that. It gives you a total length of sealed roads at 274 kilometres at the moment. Yes, it does include Mallee Pond. And some of those road lengths are currently under review. Remember, we are 134 kilometres is the magical figure we need to get to. Underneath those, you've got two indicators. The paving, which is the top one, it shows the red is pretty poor, the aqua colour is visible, the grey is stuff that is unsealed or yet to be worked through.
Yeah.
Fair condition is yellow, so it sort of shows where we're going. Condition ratings. You look at the seal, you join those together, and the red bit means that road's totally ordinary. You look at the green bits, if they align to each other, it means they're brand new and they're really good condition. So again, graphically you can see that.
Even their new stuff's pretty good. Yeah.
So
There was a discussion potential for advocating the state government for them to take Lovers Lane in return for
Gilbert,
yeah. Is that something that's been progressed, or is that just because it's, I think, about question. Yeah.
You can put it line, but it's line.
Because technically don't need a permit to go down.
they do.
Do they?
They do come, they come down. We speak.
They permits a number of permits per day for the last majority of them. Yeah. So it's come through.
Yeah. You don't get that.
Yep. But again, that's the permits we do have. We do approve them on today, and the ones that come through Gilbert Convert, we push out. There is a few that come through Private North, get the side. So
The reason I know was because there was a lot of issues in the past about children crossing at the school. So, but it's the best they have control, not have trucks. So they need to be, not like spray trucks coming in, it's not meant to, but they do.
Good call.
Is that?
I go jogging, Lovers Lane. It is, boss, if you were, we should probably do it sooner.
No, we should hand it over.
Well, it looks really nice.
Yeah.
We should hand it over to the other one.
And like the side of the and stuff. Your opinion. Probably not district, but
that's a good road. Bear with me for a second. So, in answer to the question, I haven't pushed that in terms of swapping over with Parliament, etc. So, definitely push that through. I mean, there's more kilometres of, I believe there's more kilometres of road down Gilbert at the moment, and in my opinion, it's going to, will be expensive to fix it. Yeah, correct. So you've got a good road now that we have had contribution to building. Yes, it's in good nick. Should we get rid of it now? You're going to go from a really good road to a really good one. So again, it's do we get rid of it?
So we do need to work the edges a lot, because that's as soon as that gets wet, pulled off on the side, they just sink.
Yep.
And I think we built that, didn't we?
Yes.
We do it today. Yes.
I haven't. We'll look at everything we've done so far.
So what you see there, so this is information that's coming through. Again, we only received this at the end of last week, so it's basically brand new, but it's showing you that we are tapping that on. You can see it, you can visualize it. It's not just you can actually see it. Go to the next one. This is our condition rating. This is our condition rating. So every road, it's very similar to what we did in previous times. There's standards in regards to how you assess a road. So when the vehicle goes over, we then go back into the condition rating of each of the segments. But every 10 metres we pick up dust. So it tells us that left-hand side is and the right-hand side is that. So again, brake route versus not. Next, please. What does that overall network look like? You see here, so graphically, you can see the red is basically poor condition for road name. You can go from poor condition back to good condition based on each of the roads, so it gives you an indication of where the road sits. In terms of the total, see performing, and your percentage graphs and stuff in there. So once we cleanse that data, 34 k's of road or thereabouts, we can then say this is where, as a dashboard, we can see how it's tracking.
And just for clarity, for people watching, well, my understanding of that network act is that you'd be able to, whoever has access to it, mark in one day the portal, but certainly a council available portal where you can hover the mouse over a particular section, tell you when it was last rebuilt and give you some data on. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of all way, you can just see what happened to it. I'm guessing last week. So will that get back logged with data, like backfilled with the data that we have, or will it only be from now?
Yes, we're currently, or what I'm doing, we're currently looking at the data of 2020 versus the current data that's coming through, and we're sort of working out the difference, etc. The new data is going, I guess, what we are seeing from the old data, and if there's a trend either way. And also as time goes on, in 5 years' time, we get new data again, you'll be able to then see a trend as well. But all that will go into one system so you can have access to it.
Do you think that would be like a stock take every 5 years, or can they go virtual 12 months to do a certain amount of stuff when they're out and about? Or is it just more economical to get them here for 1 to 5 years?
I would like to see over the next couple of years that we can prove that internally we can capture information and then load up this. The idea is we capture information, load up some of the system-based stuff that we can then dump every 12 months and give you the right information for a work report.
Because I think they were talking about some of that technology is actually could be available to put out there or something so that we can share inspections.
But in terms of our maintenance, say when it was last resealed, what maintenance we've done, etc., we can start to improve some of that stuff.
Don't go back very many years ago.
This is a snapshot done in 2026. We've got a snapshot in 2020, and I guess there's previous snapshots and previous calculations. But saying that we need to draw a line in the sand somewhere and go, this system we're going to use, we can then do some modelling based on that system, and we'll bring other information into it.
Because council did keep records way back. We done it, prove what was done. And that's how they can't be testing.
So I guess in summary, this is what this is trying to do is give you an overview to say what does that road network look like, what's the condition of it, this difference between the seal versus the pavement, and then you can I guess show some of our worst roads and then push them against each other, Again, 4 sealed and 4 pavements. Next one, please. What does that look like for roadies? Here's what we better. Lovers Lane. You can see here, Lovers Lane, the pavement is the top one, in the left-hand side. Then the pavement is the top one, so aqua and the light blue means most of that is pretty good condition. In terms of pavement, there is some pavement failures, and it's shown the dots there. You've got the road middle, you've got the interface with Mallee Pump, and you've got the interface with the Brownsville.
Should have pulled that out.
So again, it's showing how our road is performing for pavements. For seal, it's saying that yellow, majority of it is yellow, so I'm saying it's in good condition, fair condition. So we can go down to the road network stage of it. So that's what that road's performing as. So if we look at the next example, Enterprise Road, we talked about Enterprise Road this time last year. Hasn't got much better. But what we can do from this map here is the good road we saw before, Lovers Lane, it was a majority of blues, aquas and yellows. Enterprise Road, there's lots more reds, lots more pinky colour. So it's saying that that road is probably at end of useful life in a few areas. A simple spray seal over the top is not going to fix that road. We need to do some pavement repairs to it. We can go through and say, click on the different elements there and say, where's that worst bits of road? And you can see where we need to fix up pavement so we can push people into doing a patch in the red areas. If it's a small little patch in one road, you can then identify in the plan and go, right, that's where that section is. Go and fix that, and then you can spray over the top. This is saying that there's only a couple of spots there that are actually in okay condition.
And those little dots will actually be photos later?
Yep, there's photos at every dot, and there's information at every dot. So again, what this is saying is from a network point of view, you can look at all of our seal roads. You can break down the classification of that series or classification. You can break down comparing a couple of roads in that classification, or look at individual roads in particular down to every 10 metres and say, where do we need to send the guys to fix that? The table on the left-hand side shows what our condition rating is. So 60% is very poor pavement, 21 is poor, fair, good, and very good is 20%. So it means that pavement is basically shot underneath the road, is pretty ordinary. The seal between poor and very poor, you're looking at about 70%, and you've got 30% that's fair.
So that means about a whole rebuild the whole bloody thing.
Correct. So that road, when you go back to when it was built, was reworked again in about 2016, 17, I believe. Again, I'll grab those figures and put those into the system. But again, it's showing that that's not designed for the traffic that it's on, whether it's pavement underneath, whether it's subsoil moisture, potentially Main Street Pinaroo, or other factors, different road movements or different traffic. So again, this is a great tool to say, you know, is it just the seal or is it the pavement? And if we compare that road to all our other network, we can say, well, that one is our worst. Should we be fixing that? That's not a $24 a square metre. That's a lot more than.
Does our risk matrix and risk assessment plan take into account things like this to say, well, okay, that's in a poor condition, but it's also, you know, 650k an hour with heavy transport. So sure, it's probably 30 versus, you know, piece of rock, verges of rock, 100. Goes to the truck, go. What, like, is there a risk profile to that drives counts a little bit as well, or is it purely a tree?
You think?
Because I know when you look at it from point of view, road is listed as a high risk issue, and when it comes down to medium, if you apply the treatments that we have, which we don't because we don't have the treatments in our budget. So I'm just, that's obviously an issue. Yeah, does it do the same thing with this?
So in direct answer, we don't formalise this in risk assessment with that scenario, but my response is your asset management plan should drive what you do in regards to managing the roads, which gives you the budget to maintain what we do. So if we have that in place and we do what the asset management says, and we're spending 1.4 million, which we are, then for unsealed roads, we're allocating budget and we're spending it on highest priority roads, which is condition rate, which is what we're trying to do. If we go against that, it may open up some opportunity there, but we can process. In terms of a direct risk, if there was a pothole on this road, we will go through our customer request system or our works management system and say we need to fix a pothole. Our level of service, which is under our road policy for better what we do, we would then fix that pothole in 10 days to fix it. If we don't do that, then there's potential exposure for not fixing, etc. We insure through mutual liability scheme. My understanding, my interpretation of that is, if we have processes in place, we follow our plan, we've got budgets approved, we do the work, we should be doing it, and we have a inspection-based risk priority, then we're showing that we are maintaining our roads to the best ability we can. So if we're under budgeting, if we're committing and underdoing it, then we may be exposed to a potential claim. That's my personal opinion. Yeah, that's how we sort of manage it. So from this point of view, we work on condition rating, we reshoot our roads, then comments come through or queries come through or sensors come through, we go and have a look at it, we plan the works, and then we deliver those when we can within our budgets. So, and it's written in our roads policy at the moment, we maintain to allocated budgets.
Yeah. So, I mean, Billiard Road is the one I'm thinking of, and again, that's a problematic heights at all. It is high speed, so it's not a pothole, it's a broken shoulder, it's completely missing the period. And that's all I'm trying to understand is where does that run? How do they follow each other? Because if you went to that, that's going to be two. Where that thing is gone. It's just because of the centre. So it's just understanding, you should drive that, it's just an arbitrary decision in the end, 'cause you won't.
Yep.
For both of those projects, that's probably the full budget for a year to fix that road.
Yep.
It's going to be more like $5,000 to $9,000 through that road. Actually, fixing the verges is probably similar.
Yep.
And just trying to understand where that sits.
I guess from an asset management point of view, the asset is the road pavement on Enterprise Road. The asset you're maintaining on Feely Road is the seal width.
Yes.
So theoretically, it's up to the maintenance crew to maintain the seal width, and if there's a bit of an edge break, we should be maintaining it. For those who have gone through between here and Finnaree lately, you can see that the Department of Transport has done some major maintenance where they've fixed all the edge breaker, ready for a spray seal over the top. They have I call it a fortnightly pothole crew that goes around throughout district and puts columns in place. How long it's for depends on the vehicle mix. That's where the maintenance stuff should come in. That's why doing snaps. So that's why we're working in that space to say, have we got enough maintenance budget? Is it efficient with what we do? Do we have processes that if we got critiqued, we go back and say that pothole was done within a day, a week, a month? Doesn't meet our level of service? Do we need to put more budget in there for maintenance? So
that method they're using on the highway there, where they're basically putting dirt over the top of bitumen and then resealing. No, well, actually, pretty decent road. Longevity loss. It's actually turned it into a pretty crappy piece into a pretty good piece. I wonder if that methodology is stubble or whether it's a real solution.
On top of my
that's the cement treated.
Yeah, well, that's they're literally over the top of the bitumen with a cover and then resealed over.
Yep. So that's a stabilisation technique. So basically, they bring a machine in, they basically smash up the spray seal, and they blend in cement over the top, and it firms up that rubber base, and then they spray over the top of it. So the spray seal they've got at the moment is a temporary one, and then they'll spray over again shortly, and that's what they're looking at. But you see there's a couple of defects coming through, so there's some localised issues there.
And that's the treatment we're talking about for Tarek.
That's a treatment for Tarek well. And that's the difference between fixing some small potholes versus is there pavement related issues that you need to treat the whole road. Once you've done what they've done down on Public Transport Road, it firms it up. You can't just go and fix a little section. You've got to use other technology to do a profile. So it stiffens the pavement. It should last for a while, but you can tell by people that drive through there that have had some failures in there, localised failures that have had to do some other treatment. Those other treatments will be interesting to see how, again, in my opinion, how long that will last. When you do put the final seal over the top, will they just pluck out and will it become an issue? That's my concern for Target Work. That's why I think we need to get more information to work out what the best approach is. Once it's cement treated, it will firm up, but of course we'll have concerns in the future. We know, for example, that there's a road in our district that's under roadworks now. We put a geofabric layer in there, therefore that adds to the complexities when we have to short term or long term. It just adds.
That way, sometimes you just got.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're better off to take a little more time to assess it properly.
Yeah.
And to put a proper design approach in that you can then fall back to and say, this is where we are going with it.
Yeah.
Because once you start a process that is stabilisation, whether it's cement, foam stabilisation, you're then kind of limited to what you can do after. And the cost of that versus the cost of 50 mil, what's the benefit in terms of thickness of base? Roads that have a lot of runways normally, in my opinion, last. That's just my opinion. But we can see how Tarragon Carcoon, because Carcoon has been stabilised through Council. So we can then see what that material locally in that do, and then we can potentially save council, spend council money in regards to Tarragon. If it falls apart or there's issues short term, that may not be appropriate. Or if it works and it's showing really good signs, let's hit the green light. Yeah. So Cool. So getting back to that, we could look at the per roads that's in there. So we can break it down in regards to where location is, how it's working, and really deep assess it with snapshot information. So again, we can drive or we can have a look at compare that rate to another prioritise. Excited? He's silent.
Yeah, we got. That'd be interesting.
We do. We can interview all the information. If I plug in, then
Well, just
like I said, it's trying to build that trust and rapport to say that's what we're working towards. We can then potentially have another workshop on our screen and say, you want to look at these roads? This is how we compare. We can compare that with them. And then for works program, say, this is what we're trying to do to fix it. Spray seal will work on there. A pavement replacement will have to work for Enterprise Road. We might be able to do a spray seal down the other end of Main Street of Pinneroo to hold it for another 10 years whilst we fix up the other stretches. That's what we're trying to get enough information out of council.
You can create it on computer if you give me.
It would be pretty fair to say that so yeah, you could allocate every year for the next 10 years, and you won't have remedied all the issues that are there, but you'll be on path, and then it's just about what's your, and eventually you'll get to the point where actually fixing a backlog of the work done.
so we do need that.
So I guess in theory, unsealed roads, we're looking at reducing the useful life and having an intervention level coming in. Unsealed roads, we're leaving as 25 years. Sorry, for sealed roads, we're leaving at 25 years. However, we've still got a shortfall of budget. So it's just acknowledging that. So we're saying we'll come up with a list of what we can do that's reasonable based on what you see there in terms of proper data. So by the next 4 weeks, next budget meeting, we can then bring that to you for knowing that we've already got budget allocation this year for some roads, which we're going to do. We've got some projects in this year, which is Main Street of Pinneroo, Tarry Well to find out what to do with that. And we're delivering. So again, there's some, we've got budget now. We then need to work out those current projects and then we can work through for the next ones. But there's no quick, easy answer to say, let's spend some money on reseals, we have to rebuild some more roads. We also know some other roads that we'll drive around. We know that there's concern there. So we need to start to think about, should we be spacing those short term to last for another 20 years so we don't have the same issue in the future. But trying to bring all that to a next budget will be the next couple of weeks with the work. Cool. Okay, next one. Sorry, are we all happy with that? Happy with the approach so far?
You need a drink or something? You haven't even had a drink. You've been talking for
13 minutes, I reckon, and then we can. Is that cool?
It's married to this.
Because you're in that plan, but just going back to Campbell's, which is obviously gutters and footpaths.
Yep.
Does that come from here? It's just not covered.
So we're only talking about road sealed and unsealed, and then I want to try and get through plant because that's I think a fairly straightforward discussion. Then we can open up other discussion like about curves, everything else. If you have the so if I go to the slide, so give me 12 minutes. Right, is that right? Mr. Chair?
It's just following this one.
Boss. Okay, so it is only 23, so it should be pretty well. What is this? What does it cover? It covers heavy plant, heavy vehicles, light vehicles, commercial vehicles, passenger vehicles, furniture, fittings, and IT equipment. We've got a total asset value of about $6 million. Next one. In terms of asset management plan says on the right side for 2026-27, we have about, $800,000 worth of land review. What we currently have in the backlog of carry forwards is from 2025 got greater, 2026, we've got the rubbish truck, the passenger vehicle, nation roller, and then we've got this year's suggested program. In terms of where I can see we should be looking at a renewal plan, I think we need to spend about $400,000. That will get us through the next 12 months. The reason why I'm suggesting that, this identifying that there is a backlog, we know. If we release those funds to put into roads, then we can then, I guess, look at heavy. When we start to break down the renewal program for plant, we got a carry forward of graders, and we're ready to talk whether we need 3 graders. At the moment, we use 4 graders during the grading season, and we use 3 graders in the off season. If our graders are out working for doing patching, generally it's 1 construction grader or year 3. So again, we're saying we would delay that for a year. We know that the oldest graders, it's not the same configuration of the other 3, and it's done 10,000 amps. Is it worth selling? We've got an indicative price for going to market. At this point in time, the value is the value. I don't think we need to spend any money to replace it at this point in time. It's not worth the $400,000 or $500,000 renewal costs. If it blows up, if it stops up, if it fires, then we roll. So at this point in time, that's my thinking behind that. If you go down the next little bit, we've got the roller. You don't need the roller to go with that 4th grade.
Just a IT renewal, $1,000.
Yes.
That's the IT system.
Okay.
That's low. Yeah, keep going.
We'll get that. In terms of roller, we don't replace the roller where if we replace the grader. We got 4 rollers, 4 graders. If you don't replace the grader, then we must keep it. Again, our rollers are based on 25-year life. One of our rollers is up to about 24, 25 years life. The guys do like them. So we've done some fairly significant maintenance in the last 12 months to keep it going.
They're even expensive, aren't they?
Correct. That roller is not the self-propelled roller. So the one that you sit in and go along, these are tow. So again, $100,000 for a tow roller versus a lot more for a self. The passenger vehicle in there, we're suggesting that should be $100,000 or 5 years. But it hasn't reached that 100,000, so we're not looking to renew that vehicle at this point in time. The truck, the rubbish truck, we've already had discussions in the chamber about rubbish truck, and we won't have a decision on that until the end of this financial year. At this point in time, we're in a delay mode for that, pending a contract discussions. The rubbish truck in our asset management plan is based on 10 years. It's currently 8 and a bit years, so therefore it's not quite due in my opinion. And it's at a stage where, yes, it is declining in useful life, but we can still make it through for the next 12 months, make a decision on that. In terms of IT projects, there's some iPads and Service Pros. We have looked at some iPad renewals last year, so this year, sorry, so we've implemented those. But there's also some IT upgrades in that. So the notes are, do we need to replace the laptops? But also there's some IT upgrades in there. So we've allocated $1,000. It may not be $1,000 for laptops, but that's sort of where we sit with that for discussion point. Yeah, in terms of that.
So we ran down the renewable.
So the iPads we've got are the depot ones. So we replaced 14, 15 of those this year. 5 years. Yep, so they're 5 years. That will last. So, and then the other laptops, iPads, Service Pros, whatever they are, that will be based on a raw material. So that's what that budget is initially for. I understand, again, my expertise, but I understand that we did move to a certain style, and now we're sort of set on that. The reason for putting $100,000 in there is to look at our whole IT system. And again, the boss will talk more about that. But it's saying that there could be some system improvements that would improve the way we do it. And therefore, let's spend money on system improvements. And if there is laptops that need replaced, let's allocate some money to that. At the compromise, pushing out some of our other vehicles and some of the major fleet in the asset class of Part 2. Have a go.
Good.
Cool.
My car, if that's okay, so that one can be worked out.
Yes, we'll.
Sorry, I keep jumping.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, you want me to talk?
Yeah.
You really like Subaru, do you?
Oh, I've still got 7 minutes. No,
That's- when you're talking about going on the road. Wait, we think you should drive a lot. So you sort of, yeah.
Yes, no,
What's it?
I'll IT related, I'll.
Awesome. Heavy heavy we've got the skid steer and backhoe accessory in it. So $330,000 in our main plan. The backhoe is on a 10-year replacement. We've only done 15 years. So what I'm suggesting here is still life in that. Don't think we need to consider replacing that at this point in time. Let's hold for another year, at least for dealing with the skid steer. Again, 10 years, it's only done. Again, it's in that. We talked about a skid steer last year for Buchanan. I believe the skid steer should be on a truck with a broom with a profile ahead to one person can drive the truck out with a skid steer to go and do a job. At the moment, we take a load of skid steer separate and truck is separate. So we're trying to look at efficiencies in the future to say if we have a truck with a trailer with a skid steer and all the stuff we need to do to fix your potholes, fix all your bits and pieces, let's work to that approach. At this point in time, we're not getting utilisation to then skill that. So let's sit on that for another 12 months. That's the reason for delaying.
Just a note on that because you raised a couple of points. I believe Brad manufactured a or curbing that attaches to a skid steer.
Yep.
Which means that potentially your screw can be putting in curbing for cheaper than $1,000.
Yeah.
So it's just another thing that goes on the back of having multi-barrier that can do jobs, but using local contractors to manufacture something that's been done versus using it.
So in that heavy plant, I'm suggesting let's push out another year. Light plant, we've got 2 lawnmowers. You may recall last year we replaced 4 lawnmowers. We have a tractor slasher. We replaced 2 of our rough cut mowers. The guys are starting to use those for better mowing. These are the better mowers in replacement. So the John Deeres, they are more expensive than the Kubotas we have replaced recently. I would like to see that we move towards a yearly replacement and we have 2 or 3 months. There's some benefit in doing that. So one year, and you turn them over, you keep it, you sell it at the end of your mowing season. So you've got 3 mowers over the season if we need to, but you've only really got good mow. If you're swapping over frequently, with a trailer, of course, one person with a mower, we can get around to most places doing efficient. If you need extra mowers, then let's start to really think about how many you need. The tractor mower we talked about is 20 plus years old. It doesn't do it, works, etc. And some of the guys are using mowers for it. In terms of these mowers, we've had an electrical fault with the Pinaroo mower. It cost us about $7,000 to repair. The Lamaroo mower is exactly the same model. So what I'm suggesting is we may look at trying to move it 50 hours. So that's why I'm saying replace one mower and do it at a time where we can start to rationalise the miles we do have.
So they were John Deeres, were they?
The John Deeres are the ones in replacements, yes, the ones with electrical problems.
Yeah, well, they explained it.
Yeah, it doesn't.
The miles 50 grand. The back end 50 grand to that is potentially. So again, the miles that series John Deere is more expensive than the Kubotas, but potentially we can look at the Kubota alternative, cheaper alternative, if we're not keeping it 5 years. But also if we use it, we can then have a trailer, a plant trailer full. So that's why we're allocating 50 grand to that. And again, this is indicative. We can then firm up some prices between now.
So did you say we did 850 hours a year? So what did you say?
No, I'm saying that the current replacement is 5 years for our lots, or so many hours. We're saying that at the moment we've got 850 hours for one, and we've got 1,000 hours now. Normally, you would expect those mowers to in full utilisation in other councils, you would get between 1,500 and 1,800 hours before they start playing. That's when you're heavily using it, and you would replace them at 4 years because they are getting heavily used. Potentially with this, we could get better utilisation. rationalise the amount of mowers and swap them over more frequently, which is you're replacing 4 mowers every 4 or 5 years. So a mower a year would then get you out of that. You may be able to drop back to 3 mowers. So yeah, again, discussion point. I don't think we need to replace 2. I think
So do we overutilise? Do we mow everything once a week or extend that?
in my opinion, we underutilise. We've got 4 mowers.
Yeah.
We don't see them going out every day. We'll go through more, done some work in regards to utilisation, which is a sustainability scenario, to say what are we using it for, how many hours we're using it, what could we be using it for. So garbage truck you have to have, because you can't not have a garbage truck. Little excavator, you've got to use it for cemetery, so we do need one. Is there a local contractor that can dig out for cemetery plots? Do we need a little excavator? If it's only $30,000 or $40,000 for a trailer, do we need the most expensive excavator? Get an excavator, have those discussions. In terms of a grader for an extra grader for patrol grade, could a local contractor be able to provide that service? Don't. A backhoe, a loader, same thing. How often do we use that float? Do you need a float trailer? Can you just ring a contractor that may be able to provide the service, which we have probably recently. So it costs you 10 or 15,000, 20,000, whatever it costs for a float to own for a trailer sitting in the yard, whereas it might be $1,000 how many times do we do it? Is it too hard to break the combination, to put the float together to go get the stuff and they just drive down? You don't need to have that sitting in the yard. So again, they're the conversations we need to be having for utilisation.
It's time we spent on doing the roundabouts and in between the 2 street roads here, like, because years ago, the council got paid by the highways department for looking after the stuff in between, like mowing, but we've never received nothing since then, have we? But years, I don't think, but
no.
We must have a very time mowing that.
They would slash it once a year for fire protection. If you look at the Southeastern Freeway, they've slashed out a couple of times, and they've had some regrowth on there, and they've got some feedback from the community. I think for us, we look at our green spaces in such a way that through that sort of road content, we kept green. I'm happy with how that's presented. Let's keep that. In terms of other areas, do we let them go for the sake of the main street? If it's on bore water or recycled water, that's not that.
But that don't contribute nothing towards that at all.
No, I believe so.
Yeah, one stage I did, but what people looking at that again.
Definitely. So again, I think mowers, we look at 1 replacement instead of 2. In terms of light vehicles and passenger vehicles, what we're suggesting there is we look at a 1,000 or 5 year across the so in terms of use, whether it's a single cab, a dual cab, a manager's ute, or a passenger vehicle office fleet, for example, 100,000, if people are doing 100,000 to do their work, they're replaced. If we keep consistency with our utes, we've got to swap them over with individuals. So if a single cab ute gets more case than the other, let's swap them in, which is happening now, but it's trying to say when we replenish that. So if we based on 100,000, 5 years, I think there's 4 utes need replacing and 1 administration vehicle.
Most warranties more than that anyway, aren't they? Yeah.
Correct.
So
I guess really mature and say a passenger vehicle, 100,000 will get better recently. Around the 100,000, as soon as it goes over 100,000, may lose. A vehicle, a tradesman's vehicle that you put infrastructure on, your toolboxes, your tipper bodies, your whatever, you may want to keep that for 5 years, so you're not replacing it all the time. Especially if you don't replace that vehicle same for. If the model changes, you may not be able to use the same tray. So again, 5 years I think is optimal for outside work vehicles. Again, 100,000 when you have fixed price servicing, 100,000 for 4 drives or other passenger vehicles. I think that's probably around March. So yeah. So again, wrapping up, if you exclude IT, you're looking about a $300,000 plant budget. So
notice how it kicked you out of it. So, leave you and people understand you're making me look bad.
Well, it is 25% of the plant will get from IT. So you keep computers running.
That's right. You've just spent the whole talking about how good you Tech platform means.
Yeah, so 3 minutes over, so any comments? Any concerns there? I guess what that means is, you go back to your plan. Dollars worth on potential new purchases. We're saying we're going to use 400, so that will give us 400 of planned asset management replacement to be able to use for other projects.
I think it'd be a lot of the mowers, vehicles for sure, especially the mowers. Yeah, make it turn over.
You do.
But I think big picture we need to understand, because those carryovers would be in the original 10-year plan. I wouldn't have thought. So our 10-year plan is normally about 5,000 a year.
That's right.
So I doubt it's sitting at 8. It's probably sitting at 5, which means that, you know, probably seeing $100,000 drop down maybe. So in my head, the quick math is that we've got roughly 1.4 million of additional spend, less maybe 100,000 of savings.
Can you go back 100%?
I don't see us coming up with 20-something% revenues without having taken into account any other stuff yet. Just because that's the bigger question we've got to take. I mean, the bigger well, I'm sure it will be, but it's 25%. It's right.
So just one more, just get hidden slides. Just bear with us for 1 more second.
2 seconds.
Yeah,
That's what 100,000 makes you. Yeah, that's right. There you go.
Then go down to the, thank you. Next one. Next one. So this is next year and the year after's program. In terms of if we spend now, is what we're going to spend the next couple of years. So we've got 700,000 in the following year and 450 in the year after that. Saying is we've still got potential to. We don't have massive amounts in future years if we want to. Some of those vehicles are on a rotational basis. So, for example, we go 5 years with utes and other vehicles don't have 1,000. Then you're going to pull those back in when you don't need to replace. It's scheduled in here for 2 years for replacements.
Well, you places going to like 7 years now. And all the utes.
Yeah, cool.
Yep. But I guess it's pushing out and saying, you know, can we do that?
Oh,
And then we review it next year at the same time.
Yeah.
If it's
So you're saying this current asset management, what's the only token of value is you're not reviewing the asset management plan? Because when the asset management plan was brought to us, which is probably just, we said at the time, we don't believe in this plan because you shouldn't have use that in 2 years for a vehicle, which is ridiculous. If you buy, get a 7-month warranty with a service plan, so that's why most vehicles. Because the difference in, if you're only paying 50K for a vehicle, you might want to hang on. It depends on whether it's a trade sale. You'll probably still get as much of your trade if you sold retail as what as a trade as a net. So the lot wasn't huge. So we want to say next time that gets reviewed, we want to review the strategic stuff behind it, not every bunch of comes forward. Because that will stop this coming up time and time again. But it's probably worth waiting for the outcome of the next truck and whatever to do that once and put it forward for the next 10 years, because that's when we repopulate the 10-year long-term plan, then take that into account.
We currently have a strategic plan action as well to look at fund utilisation and rationalisation. So there is some work happening in that sphere as well. So we'll be able to come back in the next couple of months to say where are we sitting with that plant stuff, then review the asset management plan based on that information, and then go back and then hopefully next year's budget will then have better.
I think that it's a whole lot costing because, a decision was made to buy a Subaru, which is about the most expensive car you can own. From a spare parts point of view, particularly in a location like this, whereas the ranges and whereas it replaced Explorer, which was less in the room.
I guess the other thing too, from other experiences of the councils is council may wish through that utilisation report to look at other options as well. Like, is a lease option available, or is it a contribution per year, an allowance that someone can use their personal vehicle, it's only small kilometres. So the difference between council holding onto the vehicle versus if there's an allowance given, is that more beneficial to council and the employer? Also, the
Can you
staff member.
other councils like neighbouring councils when they're using, we go there using at the same time, they get a better balance.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. Murray Bridge should like look at corporate vehicles anymore.
Yeah.
It's all packages.
Yeah.
But you just get a salary for your vehicle.
Yes.
So based on your job, if you're in
Yeah.
In the past, it's going to be allowance, but yeah, what I do.
so we can go getting.
Has been discussed. No. Anyway, yes, thank you.
Is that with any new extra, in the town, there is probably a bit that should be in the
Yes.
road renewed by national.
So my approach with that was looking at how we budget, I guess this important is report coming up next time. In terms of developing the budget, this is saying what we've got to maintain what we've got. We talked to senior leadership about a new initiatives or a new projects or picture projects scenario. Again, taking the CEO Thunder, but we can then look at those and go, what about a new seal? What about a new playground somewhere? What about some other thing? And therefore, if we rationalise what we've got to do in terms of our works program, can we release funds to be able to put back into the pot to go, here's the stuff we've got to do, here's the stuff that is extra money, for example, there's some money sitting there. Is that road or that playground or that toilet block, whatever it is, that's a new initiative that's not in our program, can we put that forward? So it's saying that if we're on top of what we're doing strategically from an officer's point of view, that should release some funds for council discretion projects. So there's some ideas we've got there. It's just a matter of how we push that through, and that's more of a budget, full budget discussion, not an infrastructure related.
It's also comes down to town. A lot of stuff that costs the curbing, the roads inside of the town have been bitumised or whatever. That comes down to what's your future plan for your towns.
Yep.
And is there going to be growth? Is it going to be? How much would that be? Because at the moment, the catch up is going to be true. Let alone adding new, but once you need a plan to say, well, how do we get to that? What is that going to cost? Because that is exactly the stuff certainly for the public as well. This is what that looks like.
These are these due to be replaced, or it's going to take us like that? Is it shouldn't be starting to be reviewed?
Use it every day if you don't.
Sure. But when they do get replaced, they should be replaced. Because it's so hard to that's good a transfer of years.
You can invest more, take it. I mean, that's it. Yeah, it's take it. I don't think it's near many people screens.
Yeah, we can, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ben.
Thank you all.
Thank you. It's I misspoke at the start. I said Ben and I think we can all agree that Ben did a lot of work on that. So, yeah, well done.
Good idea.